everyone. This is Dr. Belinda Wilkerson from Steps to the Future, coming to you with this evening's college conversation. So you want to be a college program director is the title of this evening's episode. I'm really thrilled to have tonight's guest with us. He is a former student of mine from East Providence High School who has gone on to do things that I think are simply wonderful. And I'm just really thrilled to have him with us this evening. So I'm going to bring him on screen in a minute. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to share out our link. So for those of you that are thinking about joining, I want to make sure that you join in and that you have the link to join in, that you can see that we are live. So let me get this out here now. Okay. So all you folks out there in EP, I hope you're tuning in because we're going to have a great conversation tonight with Bobby Britto-Oliveira. And let me bring Mr. Britto-Oliveira on right now. Okay. So, hey, Bobby Britto-Oliveira, I was thinking about how much I used to love as your teacher saying all three of your names.
Anytime.
You know, it was Bobby Britto-Oliveira. I had to call you the whole name. You know, those things like when the kid gets in trouble and their mother calls their whole name.
Yep.
That's what you were to me. So, Bobby, how are you doing today? How are you feeling? What are you grateful for today?
Today, well, how are you doing, Ms. Wilkerson? Dr. Wilkerson.
Yeah, I'm doing
Dr.
great.
Dr. Wilkie. You're doing great. I'm doing good today. Today's a good day. One thing I'm grateful for, I would say family. I got to spend a nice weekend with my family. This past weekend. So yeah, I would say I'm grateful for family.
That's great. That's one thing I know about you and getting, seeing that we're Facebook friends too. I get to see how much your family means to you. And in this time of, coronavirus, family is becoming even so much more important. So Bobby, let's get started with the interview. So just tell us a little bit. So where did you go to college and what did you study and why did you study that?
I went to the University of Rhode Island through the Talent Development Program. I was incoming class of 2001. And while I was there, I knew I wanted to work with kids in some capacity. I didn't utilize career experience or education at all. I should have. So I was all over the place. I was like, do I want to be a psychologist? I was all over the place with what I wanted to do. And come junior year, I had narrowed down and graduate and everything. And so I chose secondary education in history. I wanted to focus on Africana studies. So I did a minor in Africana studies and a minor in psychology. So that was an undergraduate experience. And then that was 2006 I graduated. I came back in 2008 part-time, pursuing my master's in college student personnel. That's what my master's program is in. And that was class of 11.
Okay. So you mentioned the TD program. Could you tell people what talent development is for those people who don't know?
Absolutely. It's a program that was created in 1968 as a direct result of the assassination of Dr. King. And upon his assassination, the university wanted to create a program for students of color and students of disadvantaged backgrounds who wouldn't be able to get into the regular admission process. They started off with 13 students in 1968. 11 completed the program. And now we have about 1,300 students in the program. 52-year legacy. We offer, well, I say we because I'm always TD, even though I'm not employed there right now.
Right.
We offer a need-based grant called a Hodge-Folio grant, where 90% of our students get their full tuition paid for. We offer holistic advising, intrusive advising, where the advising piece is not just the touch-and-go advising that you have for each typical major advisor, very much a part of our students' lives, both the academic and the personal piece.
Okay.
That's talent.
All right, that's pretty cool. You know what's funny about that? So way back in the day, before you were thinking about going to college, you were probably in elementary school. So the TD, the Talent Development Program, and the PEP program at Rhode Island College used to be combined. They weren't separate programs. So the way it was back in my day is that you went to URI for the summer program.
Mm-hmm.
But then you decided whether or not you wanted to go to Rhode Island College, if you wanted to go to URI, or if you wanted to go to Providence College. The Providence College actually was part of the early program then. I'm actually going to put on my headphones because I'm getting a little bit of feedback on my end. I just think it's me. So folks, just bear with me while I stick these headphones in.
Okay, so that's just me. Can you hear me okay?
I hear better now.
Okay, great, great. So I ended up going to the PEP program at Rhode Island College.
Okay.
Was one of 35 students that came into that class. The sad thing is, 4 years later, there were only 2 of us that graduated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but that was one of those programs. So for folks who aren't familiar with the Talent Development Program or the PEP program at Rhode Island College, if you're in the New England area, those are programs you should check out, but also check out to see what your local college offers. So Bobby, tell me what kind of skills did you learn with your degrees that are helping you now in your career?
Some of the skills I would say would be relationship building, which is very important for my particular role. Having to work hands on with the students, it's important that you build rapport and relationships with them, trusting relationships so they know that they can depend on you.
Right.
Definitely the advocacy piece.
Okay.
Working in higher ed or any academic field for that matter, it's important that you're not only representing the institution at large, but the students specifically. So my role is directly to impact the students. So for me, that always comes first. Interpersonal communication, having empathy, active listening. If my new role, especially, I would say the programming piece, culturally relevant programming at that,
Yes.
to make sure that the students are getting that piece of their academics within the Multicultural Student Services Center where I'm employed.
Okay. So Bobby, can you tell us, tell us exactly what your job title is and what some of your job duties are in this new position.
In this new position, my new title is I'm the Interim Assistant Director for the Multicultural Student Services Center. And what that primarily consists of is just mainly being there for the students. Programming piece, the academic component, overseeing a lot of the multicultural student organizations on campus. So some of the programs that we've had thus far this semester, we moved towards it's called a community care model, which is not neglecting self-care. That's very important, but also making sure that as a community we're there for each other. So 2 of the events that we had that surround our community care were centered around the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. We also had an event titled the POC at the PWI, meaning a person of color at a predominantly white institution. And we had an alumna come back to talk about her experiences, how to harness your power, how to navigate predominantly white spaces. That was a great event. We had a welcome back event for students, first-year students of color, to meet the multicultural student organizations on campus over food and music, just more of a fun activity for them to come together. We had an event centered around police brutality and community police relations. We had one also centered around the upcoming election called the Ballot or the Bullet, named after Malcolm X's 1965 speech. And last night we had an event in collaboration with the Black Student Union titled Say Their Names. We had a candlelight vigil on campus outside of the center where we acknowledge those who have lost their lives at the hands of law enforcement.
Okay, thank you for that. So with all that being said, now those events that you were talking about, in the time of COVID, so were those how many of those, were some of those events virtual, or were they able to do some in person with social distancing? How was that set up?
The larger majority of our events, because of COVID, have been virtually, and it's difficult. We have a pretty good turnout rate, and again, that's because of the rapport built with the students prior to this role. So overall, it's been good. I wish it was better, but they're zoomed out. I'm zoomed out,
Yes.
and all day because of class. They're on pretty much all day. So it's getting onto a Zoom in the evening proves to be difficult sometimes. But overall, I'm happy with our attendance rates. The only 3 that we had in person were the Welcome Back Cookout and the 2 events centered around Black Lives Matter, which was Say Her Name, and that one was in collaboration with Pink Women and Music. Music is the umbrella group for all the multicultural student organizations. We had that in person, and social distancing and mask required, registration required, so you can do contact tracing in the event something happens, and the same with last night. So it's kind of a mix, but the majority of our programs have been virtually given the pandemic.
So we have a comment from one of our viewers, from Jeffrey Charles. He says, great work, Bobby. Thank you so
Appreciate you,
much
Jeff.
for that, Jeff. That's really good. Another former student there. So folks who are just joining in, we're with Bobby Britto-Oliveira from the University of Rhode Island. Bobby is currently the Interim Assistant Director of their Multicultural Center. He's a former student of mine at East Providence High School, somebody that I'm very proud of, and I'm really have enjoyed watching his journey to this. So Bobby, what is a typical day like for you?
It
Or is there
varies.
such a thing as a typical day?
There's no more typical days anymore. I mean, you have your plan, your to-do list from the day before, and that can go completely left depending on what you're being called for.
Right.
Typically, I would say I wake up in the morning, check my emails from the night before. And then again, because we're really building the center up at this point, a lot of my work has just been centered around creating programs, hearing the students, what do they want to see come out of the center. So one of the things I started doing even before I started the role, I knew I was going to take it on, was to reach out to the student orgs. I had like 12 pages of stuff I wanted to do, but it doesn't matter if I want to do it. You have to have the investment in it, you know?
Yes.
So I was reading the programs I had in mind and just to gauge their investment in it and to see if they were interested in it. So right now my work is really centered around bringing those programs to life. Committee meetings, student org meetings. Yeah, there's not really a typical day, but standard-wise, I would say a lot of it's centered around programming and creating the process and procedures that we need for the center to run.
Okay. So for you, what's the most rewarding part of your day? Or the most rewarding part of your work?
I would say, as simple as it is, those thank yous. You know,
Okay.
when you have a student just say something as simple as, I appreciate you, thank you, I wouldn't have without, you know what I mean? Because the work is tiring, the work is it's exhausting, and you know how it is, Dr. Rupi.
Yes.
There's days where you're fed up, and I gotta remind myself sometimes why I'm doing the work, and why it needs to be done, and how imperative it is. But it is exhausting. So even something as simple as a thank you or a text saying an update on how they're doing post graduation. Graduation day is always an amazing day to see them complete their studies. But I would say something as simple as thank you goes a long way, and it gives you that motivation to keep doing it.
Yeah. I love that you said that about something as simple as saying a thank you. You know, I always tell people one of the things my late grandmother definitely instilled in me is the power of those two words, saying thank you. So my kids that I work with now, my seniors, one of their graduation gifts that they get is they get a packet of thank you notes, because I want them to thank those people who were there on that journey with them. I said, even if you don't think it was that important, even if you thought, well, that's what they were supposed to do, saying thank you is so, so powerful. So I love it that you said that, saying thank you. So what's the most challenging part of your day or of your work?
The politics behind it. The politics behind it is definitely the most challenging piece for me. And I always take pride in coming in as myself unapologetically. And as you move up,
Yes.
that becomes more and more difficult for some people, not for me. Mainly because I said off rip, even up until I said yes to taking on this role, because it was brought to me to take it on the interim level. I declined it the first couple of times, and I declined it for several reasons, and one of which was because, again, when you move up in any field, well, two reasons. One, as you move up, you not the responsibility piece, but the censorship. I think
Mm,
that's a piece that I don't want to become familiar with, that I can't become familiar with, because the more familiar you become with that, the more out of touch you get with the students. And my work is centered around the student experience. And so if I can't show up and advocate for my students as myself, then I don't want it. And also within my institution, the more you move up, you're not in the union anymore. And I need union protection because, again, to advocate the way I advocate and to go hard the way I go hard, I need to have that union backing.
okay.
So that's the political piece. And then also I would say most challenging piece, trying to navigate with the process with students who don't feel they can do it, who come in unprepared, and they want to give up. That's challenging, but the rewarding on the flip side of that, I love it when those same students are able to excel and even if they're not excelling to like an A student or a Dean's List student, excelling to me would be like, you're not supposed to be here. If you're in this program right now, the university said you weren't able to come through the regular admission requirements. And so technically speaking, you're not supposed to be here. So I don't care if you graduated with a 2.0, you graduated from this institution. And for me, that's a success. So seeing those students who thought they couldn't make it, but still did, that's very rewarding for me. But the flip side being the challenge that they sometimes better get the best of them and give up prior to completion.
I certainly understand that because, being, having been a high school teacher, middle school teacher, and also working at the college level, it is when you see students come in who have been under-resourced all along through no fault of their own. And people have been telling them, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. You need this, you need that. You're not going to make it. And then they have that opportunity to come into a program like talent development and to be on that campus and not to be successful the way they think they should be successful. I mean, sometimes we put our own barriers up and we come in and we feel like, okay, we're not doing that. So I understand how important that is to really keep motivating those students and to be there for them, especially students that are first generation college students.
Absolutely.
When no one in your family before you has gone on that path, it's so difficult. So do you have a lot of students in your program or that come through the Multicultural Center that are first generation college students?
Well, because of the pandemic, I haven't been able to see as many students in person as I would like to. Speaking of in the town development, when I was working there, I had a heavy caseload. I would say about anywhere with 120, 140. And with the multicultural center, we don't have a caseload. It's all students of color on campus, so it's a larger caseload. Less staff. It's myself and the interim director who work hands on with the students. We have a fiscal clerk, but it's us two, myself and the interim director, who work hands on with the students. Okay. So any student of color on campus, that's their home. We're trying to make it their home on campus. That's to be the hub for them. So there will be a lot, and once we get through this pandemic, they can start frequenting the building again, utilizing the kitchen space. And even our biggest room in the center, it houses 75, I think it is. But right now, given COVID restrictions, we only have 13 students in there at a time. And that's it's a whole mess in itself. You can't have the space occupied the way I wanted it to. No furniture, no couches anymore, no communal space because of the restrictions. Right. So it's difficult right now, but we're gonna get through it once this is all done. It'll be the hub on campus for all students of color.
Okay. So tell me, all of your work has been around student access and equity. I am just, I think a lot of people hear those words and they think they're buzzwords, and they don't understand that this is about the lived experience of a lot of people. I'm just curious how you went from being Bobby Britto-Oliveira at East Providence High School to someone who really grabbed onto this access and equity, and you're just doing such wonderful things with it. So where did that transition come in? Tell me about your thought process to getting there.
I think it was for me that the initial thought behind it was coming up with an upper bound program. Okay. That being that was out of Rhode Island College. Still is out of Rhode Island College, and that was really a change for me. I went in there and I give them the most credit because I didn't go in there with the most positive attitude. I signed up for it, yes. I went through the Saturday programs. That was already a challenge for me in itself because it's Saturday. I'm in high school. It's an extra day of school. But then when it came to the summer piece, the summer component, I rebelled. I wanted no parts of it. And that challenge got me into some trouble. But how patient they were with me and how they made me stick through it. That was the first time I was in a space where the majority of the staff looked like me. You know what I mean? And yes. They cared. And them showing that made me want to give back in that capacity, not knowing that I wanted to do it as a career at all. And then transitioning from them to TV was almost like this is my path. And I enjoyed what I received from it, so I wanted to give back to it. And again, I think it's going to be a career out of it. It was just more like summer jobs and but still giving back and enjoying the experience working with students who look like me too, and have similar experiences as I. So at that point, it just became almost like habit. Everything I was going towards was those kind of programs to give back and provide advocacy and access and resources and challenging students and supporting students. And that's pretty much how it started.
Okay.
And,
It's so funny because this is the second time in 2 weeks that the guest has talked about the importance of Upward Bound to them. So our guest last week was Teresa Walker, who is a human resources manager. And Teresa talked about how Upward Bound turned her life around because she was first generation college student, wasn't thinking about going to college, and got connected with the Upward Bound program, and it was what propelled her into college and into her, future career. And now, so I don't know. So one of my colleagues at Fayetteville State University, Dr. Teresa Thompson Pinckney, who is an assistant provost over there and oversees all of the TRIO programs. I hope she's getting to see this. And Nikki Massey, who is the director of the Upward Bound program over at Fayetteville State. And then also Dr. Lakeisha Payton, who is the director of the Gear Up program, which is the middle school version for Upward Bound. Guys, your programs are working. We've had 2 people in the last 2 weeks have come on and have talked about what these programs have meant to them. So I am so thrilled to hear that. So folks, Upward Bound works. We've got testimony here. So tell me, so now that everything is online, what do your work hours look like? Because I know I have a hard time with boundaries, sometimes, it's midnight and I'm still working because I can, so tell me, so how does that affect your lifestyle and hours and stuff?
I would say, well, luckily I have a director who understands that work we can do from home. It's been proven now since we couldn't work in the office for so long. One of the benefits, if there is any, of this pandemic has been it showed that we can do work from home and still be productive. So he allows me in himself to work a hybrid schedule.
Okay.
The typical hours I would say at 8:30 to 4:30, but it definitely doesn't end at 4:30. The student orgs meet in the evening, so I'm both an alum of and the advisor for Bond, which is Brothers on a New Direction, and their meetings on Mondays at 7. So any given time I could be at one of their meetings or a CDSA meeting. They meet in the evenings also, and there's various orgs that meet in the evening. So that piece, and also a lot of times if I'm at home and I'm at the comfort of my home living room, I don't mind picking up the computer and doing some work. It's actually less stressful than having to take that hour drive to campus and then back in traffic. So getting the work done from home has been, I can sit on the couch and just lay out and do work on a Saturday morning and not feel oppressed. Whereas before that, when you're doing that commute every day, when I came home from work, it was over. That's it. But it's tiring and it's stressful. Yeah. So I mean, virtually has been a challenge in many ways, but I think it has plus sides for me.
Yeah.
As far as I've been able to do more work, I think. But the tough part is not having that face-to-face interaction with people as much like used to.
Right, because being the interim associate director of a multicultural center, I mean, that is so much about relationship building. It's so much about that face-to-face. It's about seeing your students and seeing their body language, them being able to just drop in whenever they had the opportunity to. So when something was pressing them right away, they could just walk by the center and come in and have that conversation. Whereas now it might be a little bit more difficult for them to reach out virtually, even though you're probably making yourself available. Sometimes for folks, it's like one more barrier that they have to go through in order to be able to talk to someone.
Yes.
So I really commend you for what you're doing because it is tough. So for those people that might just be joining in, we're here this evening at College Conversations with Bobby Britto-Oliveira, who is the Interim Assistant Director of the Multicultural Center at the University of Rhode Island. And it was funny because when you were talking about the commute, now people think, oh, Rhode Island's a small state. What are you talking about, a commute?
Yeah.
But we're small. We're the smallest state in the union, and when you go from east to west, we're it's not that many miles, but north to south, and then the traffic and, getting on the highways, and if anything gets backed up. So yeah, so going from, from Providence to North Kingstown, yeah, that's about a good hour drive,
Yeah,
easily,
easily.
going from the city to the rural area, because in Rhode Island we've got it all. We've got, we've got urban areas, suburban areas, rural areas. We just got a lot of stuff going on. So tell me, what kind of programs are you and the interim director looking at implementing in the future? Or
A
what are
lot
you
of them are
thinking
going to
about?
be culturally based, social political based.
Yeah.
I know he has one coming up this upcoming weekend called Black, Brown, and Nerdy. And it's
Oh,
dedicated to
okay.
that audience who identify as nerds, the
Okay.
sci-fi type, and he identifies as such. So
Okay.
we don't want to neglect that. A lot of our programs this semester have been more, given the climate and everything that's going on with the election and police
Right.
brutality and what have you. It's been centered around those kind of those purposes, but we're trying to incorporate more fun stuff too. You know,
Okay.
less serious. And I know that next semester, when we have time to really build, because again, I started in August, he started in September, we hit the ground running as far as
Mm,
programs go, but still building up a center. Um, once the students leave, because once the students go home for Thanksgiving, they're not coming back in person this semester. And that'll give Joshua and I, the interim director, time to really plan out next semester. Right now, we're pretty much winging it. I come up with an idea, and it's like, okay, I want to do a program based on it. So last week, I thought about, I'm a member of a group on campus called the Black Caucus, and it's really like black and brown folk on campus that we trust.
hmm
Who come together, we build community, we eat together. That's what we did prior to the pandemic. Lunch together every week. We check in pretty much daily in our group chat. And
Right.
I thought last week, like, it's sad right now that this group of students don't know all these different people and the resources that they provide on campus. So why don't we, and I reached out to them, create a program where introductions, you know what I mean? Just so you know that Michelle Fonts is the assistant dean for the College of Environmental Sciences. So you know that Corey Fernandez is an academic advisor for talent development who's starting the Black Male Initiative, and so on and
Okay.
so forth, all of our different groups on campus. And the program itself is going to call Meet Your Tribe, you know?
Okay.
So you know who we are on campus. When you see a black or brown face on campus, you're not alone. We're out here and we're a resource. And so if you need something, come see us. It came to my mind to do it. And so I just reached out. And again, we're just winging it at this point. And next semester, we'll really have more of a plan set in place. But so far, we've been having programs at least once a week.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. See, here's one of the things you said when we were talking about what skills have you learned. Definitely, you've learned how to adapt, because that's what coronavirus will do to folks. And the fact that you started your position and you had to start it when this COVID was already, fully developed and fully, affecting everyone's life on a daily basis, and coming up with programs in order to keep the kids engaged, figuring out what works for them, reaching out to them to see what they're interested in. So again, I commend you for doing that, because running that kind of program is tough on a normal basis. Now, when you're doing it in a virtual world where you never had the opportunity to do it face to face,
Mhm.
makes it just a little bit more challenging.
It
So,
does.
what would you say? What would you say to a student who was interested in doing this type of work? What would you tell them to do as far as what they should be interested in, or what their pathway should be?
Pathway wise, there's no specific one. But
Okay.
I would say when it gets to the master's level, I would recommend something in educational leadership or college student personnel. Um, I mean, granted, I got mine in education, and it's a similar field that led me into it. But there's no real, like, my interim director. He got his I think he was Africana studies in undergrad, and I'm making that up, but something cultural based. But I know he got his Juris Doctorate, and
Okay.
somebody might say, well, how did he get into this field? You know what I mean? There's no real pathway, but I would say
Right.
just more about the experiential piece, experiential learning piece, your resume. You gotta show that you can do this work. So for me, it was the fact that I was an RA, the fact that I worked for Upward Bound for somewhere in Breakthrough Providence, which is a program for middle school students in the city of Providence, and then through the College Crusade, working there for 3 years. So my path, or everything I had, kind of aligned into becoming an academic advisor, now becoming interim assistant director. So I would say it's more about the resume versus the
Okay.
academic path, because there's no real straight or right or wrong path.
Okay. You know, I'm so glad you said that because one of the things that I think incoming freshmen, especially when they're rising freshmen in college and before they graduate from high school and they're thinking about what they want to do, so many kids get so hung up on, I've got to have the right major because I
Mhm.
have to know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And if that major doesn't fit that career, then I don't know what I'm going to do. So I love it that you talked about how different careers that you did or volunteer work or like starting as a RA, which is a nice place to start it, but those types of leadership
Mhm.
opportunities that you took advantage of, the type of programs that you worked in, that it's what you do when you get on campus and
Mhm.
what you do in your work life afterwards that determines what happens to you. So people can go to like all the name schools that everyone talks about, and
Mhm.
you can come out and be a bum.
Yeah.
We know some of those now in public life, but we won't mention any names here. Um, so again, so it's just thinking about that you definitely can decide what it is you want to do and a lot of times you find that out once you get in college and you
Mhm.
start figuring out who you are and the different experiences that you have. So I'm really glad to hear that you talking about that. Um, and you mentioned that you would recommend that if folks were going into this field, that they look into getting a master's in something in higher ed or
Mhm.
something else. So I think that's really important to think about. The undergraduate degree may not be that important, but it's really good if you can get your graduate degree in something that leads to. But then again, you talked about how your director has a law degree,
Yes.
but he chose this particular field where he's student centered,
Yep.
and and that works for him. So that's really good to hear. So tell me, are there any professional associations that you belong to that's associated with the work that you do?
The only one I belong to currently is NACADA, which is the National Association of Academic Advisors.
Okay.
Um, but I need to look into getting something more along with what I'm doing now currently. I'm looking into on NCORE,
Okay.
which is pretty much minority based. I've never been to any of their events or anything, but I know they have one coming up in May that
Okay.
I'll be attending. And so far, I've just been looking at their free webinars and things that they offer just to stay up to date with what's going
Okay.
on.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that you're doing for your professional development, looking at different webinars.
Yes.
Okay. So tell me what's a webinar that you've watched lately? Because I know we're all webinared out, and I know all my professional development is through webinars. So
Mhm.
just give us an idea of some of the webinars that are out there for someone in your field.
I recently went to one on black male retention. I went to two over the last 2 weeks on imposter syndrome.
Oh,
Um,
important.
that was amazing. Yeah. So a colleague of mine, a friend and colleague that works at Holy Cross, she allowed me access to her institution's professional development opportunities that they're having. That was great. And a lot of them has been about the multicultural orgs. And while I have experience with them, again, being the advisor for Bond and working with them in different capacities prior to this role, I really want to get a better understanding of the structure of them and how other institutions are implementing their MC orgs. Because at URI, I mean, they're great, they're doing amazing work, but as far as research, I want to know what's going on across the
Mhm.
board outside of the University of Rhode Island, and maybe take
Right.
some of those initiatives and bring them to campus. If someone's doing something more innovative or something we can build down within our own orgs.
Right. And that's so important to see, rather than reinventing the wheel, what are other people out there doing? That's what I always tell my students, the importance of a professional organization is that now you build this network that helps you improve in what you're doing and learning new ideas, finding out what the current trends are in the field. So I belong to several professional organizations, one of them being the IECA, which is the Independent Educational Consultants Association, and we meet frequently and have conversations, and we're actually getting ready to have our fall conference, which is next month. I still belong to ASCA, the American School Counselor Association. Once a school counselor, always a school counselor.
Yep.
So definitely have to stay engaged with that. So Bobby, what would you tell a young person who is first generation and isn't quite feeling that they're college material?
Well, there's a lot of them, especially given academic backgrounds, whatever high school you went to, whatever you were told in the home or in the community, or whatever your experiences are. I would say we're all college material. If you look at me, again, I went to talent development, which means I wouldn't have gotten into the regular admission process. When I applied for colleges in my senior year, I didn't apply myself in high school like I should have by any means. I skated through. If I had a 7th period class, I was doing 7th period homework and 6th period just before it. You know what I mean? And it was the same rotation all the time. I did not apply myself. I had an 83 average, but again, I wasn't doing homework on weekends, and I wasn't college material according to UMass Dartmouth, UMass Amherst, whatever other school rejected me. I did get in through PEP, and I got into to TD, and obviously chose TD. But a lot of us are told we're not college material.
Right.
We're not supposed to make it, given our backgrounds, given our circumstances, being first gen, English is a second language, whatever trauma you have growing up in your household, whatever it is. There's so many things and so many barriers that we've all had growing up that would allow one to tell us or make us believe that we're not college material, that we can't make it. And I would say just do it. You know what I mean? Look at someone like me or someone who had a far worse than I did. You know what I mean? Who make it happen every day. And we're out here. There's many success stories. More than not, you know, if you want to find them, you can find someone who's been through it already, and kind of like mold your experience after this and say, this person can do it, so can I. And then once you get there on campus, again, it's for URI. I mean, granted, it's Rhode Island, and I was close to home, but it wasn't what I'm used to as far as diversity goes by any means.
Right.
Thank God I had talent development, because otherwise, there's many times the only person in your classroom looks like you, or the only person in your hallway who looks like you, and that could be trauma in itself. You know what I'm saying? That could bring trauma in itself. So I would say once you get there, recognize your resources. And that's another reason why we're going to have this event next week, as far as meet your tribe, so they can see that there are people on campus who look like you. See that there's organizations of students of color who look like you, who want to be a resource for you and keep you here. And that's the main thing. There's a lot of research that says about retention initiatives and having a role model or an instructor or an advisor or peer groups of people who look like you on campus, that will assist you through that process, because they too been through it and were told you can't or you won't, and they did.
Okay. I love the idea that you're putting that together for students, this Meet Your Tribe event that you're having virtually next week. But again, you know, that's so important, because I remember having conversations with students, and they talked about their first year on campus and just how tough it was, because they didn't know anybody, or they didn't know this resource was available to them. And giving them the opportunity to know that there are other people on campus that not only look like them, but come from similar backgrounds, and that if you're having an issue on campus, you know, and I'm saying on campus with air quotes, because we know everything on campus now is virtual, but those resources are still available. Those people in the tutoring center, people in the counseling center, you know, if you need help with the from the librarian, that help is still there. And I think that is one of the most important things that can happen for a first generation student, is that they understand that there are resources available to you, and that going to these resources is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. You know, so many of us came up in environments where asking for help was not something that was looked upon as favorable. So changing that mindset, developing a growth mindset where you're going to go in there and you're going to learn and you're going to expand your horizons, but you're going to do it with the help of other people. You know, I think that's so important. So I'm thrilled that you're doing this this particular event for people, so that they can have that opportunity to learn about what's important for them on campus and who they need to know. So I'm going to just take a few minutes here, because one of the things people know, one of the things I love to do during these college conversations is always to feature a book. And I am more than happy to feature this book because the author is a family member, and I'm just thrilled that I get an opportunity to show up her book. So this is Lean Semesters: How Higher Education Reproduces Inequity by Dr. Sekile M. Nzinga. And she's a family member. She is currently the Chief Diversity Officer at Northwestern University in Illinois. And this book, it's so timely because it's all about the challenges that Black women have working in higher education. And what she did is she interviewed 31 women, I think it was, and got their stories. And it's so, so powerful. So if you get a chance to read this, if you're interested in access and equity in higher education, Lean Semesters: How Higher Education Reproduces Inequity. And you can get this through the Johns Hopkins Press. So Sekile, great work. We love you. So proud of you for getting this book done. So Bobby Britto-Oliveira, I don't know if I'll ever call you just Bobby. It just feels so weird doing that. So what advice, what last words would you like to give to students out there, or even to parents who are listening? What would you want parents to be able to tell their students who either aren't quite feeling comfortable being on campus right now? Because it is a challenge that when you're Black and brown students, to be on a predominantly white institute, to go to a predominantly white institution and feel comfortable, especially when you're going in as a freshman. It's already the huge transition, and now you're transitioning, and you're also dealing with other systemic racism and everything else on top of it. So what advice or what tips or strategies would you give to families around students attending college, especially first gen?
I would say, kind of go back to a previous answer, know the resources that are there. Make sure that whatever you decide to go to, whatever school you decide to go to, has a multicultural student services center, has multicultural student organizations, has a home for students who are first gen, students of color, students with disadvantaged backgrounds. So you have that support system, and not just the academic support, but the social, personal support as well.
Yes.
I think it's imperative. Nobody wants to be most of us don't want to be the only one in the room. I certainly didn't, and I think having that outlet and having that community and that safe space, that counter space on campus, allowed me more freedom, and I see it working for students all the time. Being able to go to that spot and call it home, being able to go to that spot and vent and talk about your circumstances, to go there and grieve with someone who understands the experience, someone who can empathize with you, someone who will support you and advocate for you in the event that you are meeting roadblocks with a faculty member, a staff member, your roommate, whatever it may be. And I see time and time again. So I would just say, know the resources that are there and take advantage of them, but make sure the resources are there before you go there.
Yeah. That's so true. And right now, like you said, so many colleges are working towards trying to make sure that they have resources in place for first gen students. So when you're getting ready to go to college, when you're not even when you're getting ready to go, when you're starting to research, because you really need to do some research first, go on the school's website, see what kind of programs are available for first generation college students, and pick up the phone, call people and ask. If you know students that are in that school, find out, what does this program offer to you? Is it student centered? There are so many programs out there that are programs in name only. So you really want to know, are they putting their money behind it? Are they putting their resources behind it? And not just money resources, but are they putting enough staff in place in order to get the work done? So those are the kinds of questions that you want to ask, that you want to think about. So again, do that. One thing I did forget to mention, so for those of you in Rhode Island that are watching this and that are thinking about this book, I just wanted to let you know that Dr. Nzinga is actually a Providence native. She graduated from Classical High School and went on to Morgan State and to other higher institutions. So, hey, make sure that you are supporting your homegirl and buy her book. So thank you for that, Sekile, again, with this fabulous book. So Bobby Britto-Oliveira, I just want to thank you so much for being on here this evening. I think one of the biggest joys of being an educator, especially, you know, when you've been a teacher in a high school or in a middle school, is having the opportunity to see your kids. And you're always my kids. I mean,
Yep.
you know, you're always going to be my kids. Is seeing your
Absolutely.
kids move forward in life and to see the great things they're doing. I'm always just tickled. You know, I don't know if that, yeah, I am. I'm always tickled. I'm always so excited. I'm always feel so proud when I see one of my kids out there like doing something and taking care of business and really understanding what's important to value. Like I said, I get to see some of your posts sometimes on Facebook, and you have such a strong sense of community, such a strong sense of family. And I love seeing that. And I see how you're taking those values and that work ethic to URI and the work that you're going to be doing at the Multicultural Center. So I hope these students all realize how lucky they are having you there in place, looking out for them, because they couldn't be in better hands. They couldn't be in better hands.
I appreciate that, Dr. Wilkie. Definitely
Oh,
appreciate that. Thank you so much.
oh, you're welcome. So folks, please join in with us next week. And our guest next week will be Amber Whitehead. Amber is an IRS enrolled agent and a small business accountant. And I didn't know what an IRS enrolled agent was, but I'm going to find out because one of my students was interested in that career. So make sure you join in next week. And also, you guys, make sure that you put some good vibes out there for Bobby. So as he starts working with this program, hopefully when they get a chance to go back on campus again, students will be able to come in and meet him personally and just get to feel all those good vibes from being in his presence. So again, Bobby, thank you so much for joining us, and everyone that joined in. If you do not get the opportunity to watch this live, you know, make sure you let me know it's on the replay. I do want you folks to send this out and share it with people. And before I forget, this will be on the Facebook page, but it also, within 36 hours, it will be on my YouTube channel. This is the URL for the YouTube channel, so please make sure you catch it there, and you can also share it out from there. And if you're looking for some additional college news, I distribute a monthly newsletter that always has something about college admissions. There's a career piece, there's a financial aid piece. It's the Steps newsletter. And you can sign up at this bit.ly address. So I definitely hope to see some new subscribers come on, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm trying to build it up, trying to get it out there. As I said, been focusing a lot on Black and Brown career professionals. So I really appreciate it when people subscribe to it so we can get this information out to all students. So again, thank you everyone for joining us, for tuning in tonight for this interview with Bobby Britto-Oliveira, the Interim Assistant Director of the Multicultural Center at the University of Rhode Island. And we will see you next Monday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So take care, everyone, and good night.
Good night, everyone.